You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Zach Bechtold and Matt Franks. If you'd like to learn more about the Bearded Theologians, you can go online at beardedtheologians.com, where we have past podcasts, blogs, and a couple items for sale. So check us out, beardedtheologians.com. Thank you for listening, and enjoy this week's show. You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold.
So this week on the Beardcast, as we were kicking around ideas on what to talk about this week, Proverbs 4 elevated itself to us, and we wanted to talk a little bit about Proverbs 4 1 through 9. And so, Zach, as you think about Proverbs 4 1 through 9, what comes to mind to you, or if you want to do your thing where you normally read it, as you think about this, what speaks to you?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to read it just under the assumption not everybody knows Proverbs 4 by heart, right? So hear these words from Proverbs. Hear, children, fatherly instruction. Pay attention to gain understanding. I'll teach you well. Don't abandon my instruction. When I was a son to my father, tender and my mother's favorite, he taught me and said to me, let your heart hold on to my words. Keep my commands and live. Get wisdom. Get understanding. Don't forget and don't turn away from my words. Don't abandon her and she will guard you. Love her and she will protect you. The beginning of wisdom. Get wisdom. Get understanding before anything else. Highly esteem her and she will exalt you. She will honor you in your embrace. If you embrace her, and she will place a graceful wreath on your head. She will give you a glorious crown. When I read through that, I don't know. It's one of my favorite Proverbs that I have kind of marked in my own Bible. It comes in the middle of this whole section here at the beginning of Proverbs about wisdom, and what wisdom is and how it just embodies itself within us if we'll embrace it. And I think that's what Proverbs 4 really hits home for me, is embracing that wisdom, embracing the understanding that we gain as we live our lives and have experiences, and put it all together with what we know, with what we've learned, and the whole quadrilateral thing, right? And I love that there's some intentional moments here with just wisdom. What have you experienced? What have you learned? And if you'll take that to heart, if you'll embody that wisdom, you'll continue to grow throughout your life. And for me, I love that intentionality, even way back when, and into this wisdom of the Proverbs, that we can easily get stuck if we don't let our experience thrive, if we don't let wisdom grow within us. And so for me, that's really kind of what I pull out on the top end of that. What about you, Matt?
As I look at this and was listening to you read it, and what kind of came to mind to me was, what are you putting into your life to learn? I'm a big proponent of education, and being a lifelong learner, and it's something we should continue to do. And I think one of the things I have against the church, one of the things I tend to struggle with, is that we feel like there are people that feel like they've reached a point where they've learned it all, and not gonna change their thoughts on theology or biblical scholarship or church work or that sort of thing. And things change over time. We gain new information, we gain new knowledge, we gain new understanding of things, and with the world around us, we read scripture differently. And I think of that in regards to to COVID. As we've been in this global pandemic, sometimes I've read scripture that now hits me completely different than it would have 3 years ago, because of COVID and what we've had to experience of being isolated, of having to pivot how we do things and things like that, and all that stuff comes in the context of who we are and what we do, and we should be this. I love the first line there. Hear, children, fatherly instructions. Pay attention to gain understanding. And I think, who are we paying attention to? What are we putting into ourselves, whether it's known or unknown? are we only watching one particular news source, or are we actually branching out and trying to figure out what the actual news story is? Because obviously the way journalism is today, it's not so much news, it's more sensationalism. It's the same thing with scripture. One of the things I love about this age that we're in is now you can listen to more sermons than you know what to do with. And so like you have that opportunity to grow in your faith by listening to other people. I mean, there's these podcasts that you can listen to about faith and theology that can help you broaden your understanding, but you have to take it in. So I think it's a learning experience. We should be lifelong learners. We shouldn't abandon it. It's not that once you have confirmation, you've arrived. That's actually something I'm getting ready to teach a confirmation class. And that's actually going to be the first thing I say, is that after you finish this, it's not that you've arrived, it's that you're starting a new journey, a new chapter in your life, and want to continue to invite you to grow and invite you to do those things. And, to me, that's, that beginning of wisdom is to get wisdom.
Well, and I think, I can't ever differentiate the conversations we have in our personal lives and the ones that we have on the podcast here. But you and I definitely on a daily basis talk about the stuckness of the church and talk about the stuckness in our own life. And I think a lot of that stems from that word of don't abandon, or that phrase, don't abandon her, over and over again. Don't abandon her, don't abandon wisdom, never stop learning, right? And I think that's when we begin to get stuck, is when we have abandoned wisdom and abandoned learning and abandoned just growing, right? And revert back to, or just say, I've got it all figured out, or, the way that I heard this parable or that in Vacation Bible School 30 years ago was the correct way and the right way, and I don't ever have to explore it ever again. Well, we get stuck. And we constantly say that as pastors in the church of, well, don't tell me this is the way we've always done it. At least I do. That is a direct challenge to say, oh, well, we're going to think about this differently then. Because we need to. And if the way we've been doing it, it continues to work and continues to grow and bring wisdom and do these things, awesome. But if we're just banging our head against the wall and wondering why people aren't coming and wondering why this thing is dying, and yet we continue to do it the same way over and over again, we've abandoned wisdom. We've stopped learning, we've stopped growing. And that's what I love. That's what I love about this proverb, is the beauty of, if we'll just lean into wisdom, if we'll lean into growth, lean into learning, wisdom, she'll take us to the next place. Wisdom will teach us. She'll hold us closely and bring us. I love that end. She'll place a graceful wreath on your head and she will give you a glorious crown. I love that imagery of wisdom just holding us close and embracing us as much as we embrace her.
Well, and I think that's where being aware of, when we're pushed, or we're, not necessarily like to use the word tested, but that seems to be a good fit here. Maybe when we're challenged, ask ourselves, why are we challenged? What's challenging us? If it's an opportunity to learn something new, I think that's vital. If it's pushing up against an opinion that we've had or held on to for most of our life, ask ourselves that question is, what am I trying to learn here? What should I be learning here? I think if one of the things that gives us light for churches to lean into with this pandemic is, how are we treating other people? Like not even ourselves or our congregations, but how are we treating society? And, are we generally loving people, or are we, bashing them because they won't wear a mask, or, whatever. I mean, just whatever your flavor is. And how we, this is a great time to really ask ourselves, are we really doing what we say we're doing, or what we should be doing? And even then, that takes wisdom. That takes us to be willing to be vulnerable and say, no, we're not good at this, we need to do better. Or it takes that wisdom of being willing to listen, to actively listen. And I think we talk about this in the marriage course quite a bit, is that one of the reasons why marriages fail is because we refuse to actively listen. And I think that's the same thing within the church. One of the reasons why the church fails is because we fail to actively listen to our community in which we are mission to, being our mission field. and that we just continue to do it the way that we've always done it, because 50 years ago that was successful. Well, that ship has sailed. It's time for something new. Wisdom is pushing us forward, and we have to be willing to be prayerful about it, and to be discerning about it, and to be willing to learn new things so that we can accomplish what it is we are called to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, wisdom is the humbling ourselves to do the hard work, to hear, to hear hard things maybe we don't want to hear, to become aware of things that we once thought were true that no longer remain, right? That we now have a different perspective. We now have a different understanding. Like you were saying, the pandemic, the world around us has given us plenty to think about, and plenty of examples to change our understanding of the world around us that may or may not have been true before, but it's definitely different now because we're aware of it. And that's a humbling experience to bring that wisdom in closely.
Yeah, and I think that's as we kind of wrap things up today, how are you listening? How are you actively listening to those around you, your community, your friends and your family? And it's not you have to agree. Like, I think that's the one thing is, like, feel like we have to agree. We don't have to agree. You can agree to disagree that their opinion is not a healthy opinion, and still love the person. Please do that, because that's what our world needs more than anything right now. But I also think too is that there is some wisdom in being faithful to God, and being centered and prayerful and mindful of how our actions actually speak to the light of Christ in this world. And are we being the light? And what can be done more? What can we do to do that? And some of that means shedding of self too, of stripping away of what we do. It's not that you're being lazy, it's just you're being active, and you want to be able to give your best and your energy, and that's a wise thing to do. When if all you're doing is those things and you don't feel life coming out of that, maybe some time to consider stripping some things away. But that takes wisdom, knowing what you want to do, and being aware and self-aware, and all those things that we tend to talk about here on the podcast. Zach, do you have anything to close us with today?
I did, but that thought went away, so I don't remember what it was. Oh, no, it was, I was going to ask, in what ways are you seeking wisdom? What ways are you pushing yourself forward and learning and growing in new ways? And what ways are you finding yourself stuck? And so just that encouragement, like Matt said, of where are we seeking these things out and learning and growing?
Yeah. And I think that's a healthy way of doing it. And if it does mean shredding some things away, please do it. You'll find life in it. So for the Bearded Theologians, we want to encourage you to go to our website at beardedtheologians.com, where you can find all of our great content. You can buy some items, you can connect with us. And we want to encourage you as listeners to like us and share us. And then also wherever you listen to the podcast, whatever application you use, please, rate us. That helps get our podcast out there, so that way people can enjoy us more. And so for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold. Thanks for checking us out.
I want you to subscribe and like this video, and push that thumbs up.
Thank you for listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on all social media outlets. You can check out old episodes and more information at beardedtheologians.com. Thanks for checking us out.